about maybe what you might know. Patrick Tillman reached the coroner's slab naked.
It's a great example. I mean, you can see the segment that we did about Iraq paper scissors at our website. Just look it up, Iraq veterans. It'll show right up. You can pass it on to your friends. The filmmaker's still looking for help. The Patrick Tillman story is a great story. This is a story of the family having been lied to repeatedly by the Pentagon about what was the, why was their son killed. One story went out with the headline news. Reality was very, very different. Of the families getting enough testimony from his colleagues, his co-workers, that they were able to raise questions through media getting interested that the Pentagon eventually had to answer. And now there's a brand new book all about the Pat Tillman story, and there's a movie in the works. It's a great example of there was a relationship between independent media and a family in trouble that blew up in a way that the Pentagon actually had to respond. So I think that you can get more information about that documentary at our website. It's a powerful one, and it was one of those millions of documentaries that to get started, and the filmmaker literally was about to give up when she raised, I think, $600 in 3 days. I'm sorry, $6,000 in 3 days from people who've seen the show on our show, the clip on our show, and she said, "Thank you. You gave me the support, the interest in the film, gave me the support to go on and finish the film."
And the author?
It's Krakauer, the guy who did the book about Everest. Yeah, next.
I have a question for Josh. I guess it could be for both of you, but I was going on with what you were saying. I'm a big Wikipedia guy. I loved Wikipedia, and I was just wondering how do you keep it? Because you're talking about having all these independent, web TV episodes. How do you keep people, like a Rush Limbaugh who claims to be the defender of truth? How do you keep them regulated and honest and unbiased?
You're touching on something you've probably all heard of, the fairness doctrine, and that's a tricky one because it's a rule, it's a law that existed for about 15, 20 years. I'm not sure exactly, and it was taken off the books under Reagan in the 80s, and it essentially said, if you're a broadcaster and you're using the public airwaves as a quid pro quo, you have to show both sides of every story. So if you say this, that, and this, then you have to bring somebody on that says the contrary, or that can at least speak to that assertion. That was taken off the books and deemed unconstitutional, and indeed it is. Specifically about the fairness doctrine, but a lot of people, especially people on the left, say the fairness doctrine. The problem is, I've had the best constitutional attorneys in the country look at this with a magnifying glass, and it would not stand up in the courts, the reinstitution of the fairness doctrine. So what it means is that organizations like FAIR and Media Matters and others have to do a good job of holding these folks accountable, but at the same time, we have to have success both with independent media and other voices and in breaking open access and distribution of all media content. Remember, right now, the people in the heartland who are listening to Rush Limbaugh, they have a radio dial that's like this, and they've got only so many spots on it, and it's very expensive to get a license to be able to air on that. And right-leaning shows have done much better in the commercial market in terms of making money than the left. If we're successful in digital radio, we'll make it so that there's literally an infinite number of radio stations available to anybody, where the radio is becoming your computer. Then it becomes a marketing challenge rather than a scarcity problem posed by licensing and regulation that goes through the FCC. We have to break it open, we have to get more voices there, and then we have to dilute the market so that people can actually hear other opinions. In so many parts of the country, Rush is the only political voice that's on their dial, in rural areas especially.
Just on the Wikipedia thing, we had Clay Shirky on the show a few times, the internet guru at NYU, and somebody raised a question about Wikipedia and accuracy. And he said, well, with the web, you do have a lot more stories going up there flawed, but you also have a far larger pool of fact checkers, so that things get corrected. and the study that was done of Encyclopedia Britannica, which still costs thousands of dollars and takes up a whole lot of room on the shelf, versus Wikipedia, which is not it's not edited by a team of experts, but rather by we the people, 50 million people that have contributed to articles on Wikipedia. The study that was done of the accuracy of the two was basically the same. Maybe 1% greater errors in Encyclopedia Britannica, I think is how it turned out in the end. Those are people working for free on a website that is free and that is constantly updated by a team of people who get paid back in the value of the product that they're helping to produce. And I think that's what corporations are beginning to realize, what we organizers, community organizers, have known forever, which is that if people feel an investment in the project and that their contribution is valued, they will contribute for free for the sense of ownership. Now, that's not a way to make a living, but it is an opening of relationship that new media affords us, that we now have to figure out how do we translate all of that good feeling and collaboration into the ability to leverage laterally the resources and secure the policies that will provide livelihoods for the folks who are doing this work.
Yeah. Piggybacking on some of what you said, do you think there's too much control in Washington, and are we ever in danger of anything approaching some kind of censorship?
Well, I'm sure that Josh will have a lot to say about that, but I think that we have been enduring decades of censorship. The censored views of those who were experiencing the bottom end of our economic boom are, I think, the test, are the evidence of the censorship regime we've been under, which didn't rely on censors. Nobody tapping me on the shoulder saying, cover this, don't cover that, but relied on the reward system that rewarded those who brought you the news and reporting, that sold the products, that produced the profits for the corporations. That's a particular kind of censorship, but when it means that we're not getting warnings about the bottom falling out of our economy, that's about as serious regime of censorship as we
But you
can.
talk about China, I mean, could it happen here?
So it was right here.
Censorship, could it happen here?
Well, I actually think that, short answer, no, but it's a different kind of censorship. It's it's basically what Laura's talking about, but I want to frame it a little bit of a different way. When you're commercial media, and it's long on sports and weather, and celebrity and trivia, and short on hard news, the problem that we're having is that you have 25-year-old, all due respect, students, 25-year-old bookers, the people who decide who gets on to the nightly cable and network news shows and place them. Picking people, you've got 30-second segments on the healthcare debate, 20-second, 60-second segments on Afghanistan or Iraq. And what happens is, I would call the censorship the crisis of omission. The crisis of the fact that, for example, the corporate lobbies in Washington, they have figured out that they don't have the facts and they don't have principle on their sides. So instead, they are engaging in sort of McCarthy-esque PR wars on all of the most important issues. If you are for universal health care, you are a Marxist, and you are supporting a government takeover of the healthcare system in our country. If you are for net neutrality, this is real, people. My staff are followed around by goons with video cameras every day in Washington since October, when the net neutrality debate heated up. Net neutrality, the idea that the cable and phone companies that deliver internet should not be allowed to slow down or block internet content. Instead, it has to be an equal playing field. If you support net neutrality, you are a socialist, Marxist, and you support the government takeover of the internet. And what's really daunting is that the commercial media, with their 30-second coverage once every 3 months of the net neutrality debate, will say it's those who believe that this is a government takeover and those who believe that the phone and cable companies have too much control. Next up, Brangelina goes to Bollywood or whatever. And people are just left with like, wow, I didn't know there was going to be net neutrality as a government takeover. Wow. And that's the debate. So I argue that the censorship on so many of these issues, the banking crisis, is people just are not being given the basic information.
I think we should also say, I mean, I think that when you're talking about censorship along the Chinese model, you're talking policy, no question, and Josh is absolutely right. But we have to, let's not kid ourselves. We do have censorship in our media every day, and it sometimes gets very obvious. I do a weekly spot just about on the Ed Schultz show on MSNBC. And a few months back, there was a topic that came up that they did a pre-interview with me about, which they never normally do. And the topic was Glenn Beck had called the president a racist. Remember that? He doesn't like white people. I see white people. Deep-seated hostility to white people. And the discussion on the Ed show was going to mention this. And for the very first time, the bookers said, we would just prefer that you focus on, if you want to talk about Glenn Beck himself, not Fox as a whole, as an institution. And I found out, just hours later, I was cut from that segment. They had a debate that's usually 3 people with just 2. Because I said, well, the network, frankly, I was going to say this is a ridiculous, the amount of attention that goes to Glenn Beck should be shrunk, not expanded. I can't remember what I was going to say, but I said, it's the network's responsible for giving him the airtime. They are making their living off the ratings that he gets with his fake abuse. That very week, the story broke that the corporate executives behind Fox and behind MSNBC, you think they have the most different views of the world, they united on not wanting the audiences of the other network challenging their corporate interests. So GE was annoyed about a campaign that O'Reilly had mounted against GE, and Fox was annoyed about a campaign that Oberman was potentially mounting against O'Reilly's viewers and the advertisers behind the O'Reilly factor. So you had the corporate executives saying, we don't want either of our guys, our talking heads, bashing our corporate interests. So Oberman literally had to explain to his viewers why, whether or not he had agreed to sign a pact not to attack O'Reilly. It was a whole long to and fro. You can read about it, just Google it. But there you have an example of, you may think we finally have a liberal network on cable. They have the same eye on their corporate bottom line as they ever did. And when it's important to them, they will team up with the other guys, and the stories will be skewed to make them different. I mean, that was a very classic example. And then there's just one other one that I think you still see a lot of censorship in international reporting. We did a story the other day about the biggest set of casualties, U.S. casualties in Pakistan after a bomb attack was made on a unit that was working, supposedly training with the Pakistan military in the border region with Afghanistan. It's a very important story because it reveals that in fact the U.S. Army are doing much more in Pakistan, with which we do not have a military agreement. We're not supposed to have troops. The Pakistani people never agreed to have a U.S. troop operation on their land. This killing revealed that there were these troops in this particular location. The question is, what were they doing? The byline story in the New York Times, bylined Pakistan, quoted one independent Pakistani source, 21 sources who were either government sources, U.S. government or Pakistani government sources. Never was it mentioned in that article that the newspapers of Pakistan are aflame in editorials criticizing the role of the U.S. military and Halliburton and seeing the conspiracy that Halliburton is taking over their government. It's important that we in this country know just how much fury our policy is provoking around the world. That you once had a reporter on the scene, she only quoted official stories. I think that amounts eventually to censorship. Not covering demonstrations against the U.S. presence, not listening to what people are going to say. We're going to have another Kabul in Pakistan and going to wake up tomorrow and wonder why. It is censorship.
Wow. I just want to thank you both, not only for coming and giving such extremely stimulating talks, but for your contributions to our democracy over the years. Laura worked in a small office in New York with you in the summer of 1989. I would say in the summer I was interning with Claire and Jeff and wanting to become a media activist. And having a hard time conceiving what that would be. And yeah, there was no free press at that time. There was fair. Thank you also for the pioneering work that you did in creating a media movement that can employ media activists as well as journalists. It is, not only a very wonky subject, but also a very overwhelming one, and it's very admirable the wide range of issues that free press has tackled and the big house that you have created for media, to become a real issue.
All right, so what's the question?
Well, I just wanted to ask, and I wanted to hear you say what you perhaps stopped yourself from saying about the Obama administration and its media policy, Josh, but given the content of what you gave us in your speeches tonight, I wanted instead to ask you to just go give us a big picture. I mean, 20 years ago, there didn't seem to be much of a media movement. Now one has exploded in so many different directions, and you've given such an exciting view, Laura, of the moment where we're at. What would you invite us to envision 20 years from now in terms of media and democracy?
All right, you know what I'm going to suggest that we do? I think it's about 20 to 10, something like that, 9:35. Should we take these questions and then answer them in a little group? Take 3 at a time? Sure. All right, so we've got a crystal ball question. Where will we be in 20 years? Thank you for that.
We at one time had a much more diverse media. Ithaca had radio stations that were actually owned by different entities, and we had multiple newspapers in here. And you described the new media as having that diversity come back, but it all comes through the internet. And with that change, you also lose the privacy. When I used to go buy a newspaper, it was anonymous and it got passed on anonymously. When I listened to a radio show, no one knew outside of my locale who was listening to it. When I walk around with my iPhone, the police can tell where I am and what I'm listening to. When I Google a lot of things, when I look up things, when I pass those on, it's being watched by different entities that are gathering that information, profiling me, selling it on to different entities, passing it on to the government. And
All right, what happens? Thank you so much. Next, last one. Oh, we'll take one more after this.
Thank you. You've talked eloquently and well about the concept of net neutrality and how there's the equivalent bottom line in all of the media, both progressive and right-wing. And you talked about how the corporations own all of it, basically. And you've talked about moving more to an internet-based open media system. But the corporations own the internet also. And they have control over what we see, even though right now it seems like they're not really exercising it. They also have the ability to turn it off at any point in time and turn off any piece of it that they want to. What do we have as a backup? What do we have as an alternative and as a way of dealing with that aspect of it, both from a policy perspective and from a practical, on-the-ground perspective?
Great. All right, thank you.
Okay. Two of my favorite shows are The Simpsons and 30 Rock, and in retrospect, I see them both have, full-heartedly taken on the media conglomerate that they're part of, Fox and NBC. And I was just wondering your thoughts on these really popular shows just, blasting their networks. What meaning and significance does that have?
Good point. All right, who wants to start? Who wants to start? All right. I think I laid out the crystal ball options. Good options, bad options. Good options, we managed to have this multiplicity and diversity in a new world of collaborative, laterally leveraged media where the citizens speak. Bad option, all the same corporate interests that control and bought up our old media by our new media, and we're back in the wilderness. I think that's where we're at. Will the bishops control our pornography? I think that's where we are in this Gutenberg 1500 moment. And I'm still curious about what Gutenberg 1500 folks wore. Privacy question and the sort of the big brother question. What if somebody pulled the plug? We do new media at GRITtv and we do very old media.
in the sense that we do all the new stuff I've described. The old pieces, we actually gather people together once a month in a room and talk to each other, people to people. Our open editorial meetings are open to the public. Anybody can come. You can join by conference call. We really encourage people to come to our conference table and talk to us in person. I've always thought that really the change, the most important change you can do is the change that involves people you can touch physically, you know, and that people want a connection that is human. So we can bring people the virtual connection of the media, but we're coupling that with the people-to-people connection of these phone call meetings that I'm telling you are some of the best organizing meetings. We don't organize, of course, we're just a media platform, but a lot of exchanging of information happens among progressive groups on these grit group meeting calls. And people get together and plan things together. Oh, you're bringing this one to town, let's have her come to our conference. Let's do this, let's do that. We may do a show. Media, the reason I've always loved media as opposed to one issue or another is because media is a meeting place. It's a community that we build when we invite people to our studios. Our show isn't just my voice, isn't just me talking to one person. It's a conversation. It's we the people talking together in public, thinking things through together in public. The experts might be the people living on your block. The people you really need to listen to might be the people at the local store. Ours is an exercise in thinking together. And I hope that what it tries to do, or what it does, is to remind people to engage with those who are around them. So is media the be-all and end-all? No, it's the tool of introduction. And the introduction, I hope, is to community building that will provide us with the only tools that have ever mattered when it comes to fighting back against Big Brother or big media or big corporate farms. So I think that's the best answer I've come up with so far, is we strengthen the media relationships as we strengthen the people relationships, so that we'll all be together in the streets if they pull the plug on our net. Let's hope. But that's a very real policy question. I look forward to what Josh has to say. On the Simpsons and 30 Rock, Jeff Cohen could talk about this also. That popularity in media sometimes means popularity and independence from the corporate controllers, and sometimes it doesn't. When Phil Donahue was on MSNBC, it wasn't the MSNBC that it is today. When Jeff was working with Phil, it was very clear that although that particular show was one of the best rated shows on MSNBC at various times, the best rated show on MSNBC at that time, they still controlled the best of Phil Donahue, shrank him, pushed him into a corner during the first Gulf War, because they didn't want the anti-war voices, they didn't want the voices of dissent. I believe that while we have a new cast of characters at MSNBC today, and they do chomp down on the hand that feeds them from time to time, we shouldn't relax into thinking that ratings will save you. They didn't save Phil Donahue then, and frankly I think the jury is out on whether we would have the kind of tolerance of what Oberman and Rachel Maddow do on the air if there wasn't also a sense that, well, there is an appetite for this in the public. Movements and what's on the media have a relationship. And I think that we saw a shift in the tide at MSNBC at just the same time as we saw a shift in the tide in the electoral process. I still think there are some topics that are off limits on MSNBC, some of these economic topics we've been talking about, really challenging how our economy is structured. But the success of The Simpsons and 30 Rock does give us some hope. So I think it's a glass half full kind of a situation, and it's a fascinating topic for a paper. Thank you.
I'll be very brief because you guys have been very patient, and thank you for enduring. And I didn't say this at the outset, I do want to thank our hosts. Thank you so much for having us. I think it's important to note, satire and humor allows the opening for what you're talking about, the criticism, the comedy show, which is a notable inclusion in that list. But when it's serious, then it's different. So you've just spoken to that, but also it's notable Rachel Maddow and Keith Olbermann have not spoken about the Comcast NBC deal in any real detail, and certainly have not been terribly critical of it. It's also notable that when the Comcast NBC deal was announced, it was amazing. There was a network television news show, the Banner show with Brian Williams, actually did a segment about it because they had to, because it was about their network, and if they didn't, they would have been berated, and they used a 6-second clip of me saying something absolutely useless from a really good 5-minute interview. So that's how that works. When it's serious, they don't. When it's satirical and funny, they allow it. Privacy, the thing about privacy is very simple. We have had phone service in this country for many, many decades, and we've had privacy rules on the phone lines that generally works, and it simply says that in order for the government to listen in or track what you do, they need a warrant signed by a judge and due cause. You're a terrorist. You just threatened to kill somebody. There's a reason to do it, and you need that. That needs to simply be applied to the internet. It's extremely simple, and it's the same set of rules. It's currently murky, and we all know Obama promised that he would hold the phone companies accountable for working with the NSA to spy on the public, and as soon as he got elected, he reversed that. So that's the simple policy answer to that. Now, I should note, for people who are worried about kids and smutty, vulgar content, we, from a policy point of view, really believe that is the role of software on the computer. It is not the role of AT&T or the networks. It's the role of the parents to be good parents and to monitor it. It is not the role of the companies or the state to be involved. Same with copyright.
Same with marijuana.
And then getting to the crystal ball. The crystal ball is really very simple, and I'll wrap. It's 20 years from now, you turn on your TV, you enter any URL you want, and it will be an interface that will look like you can pick from what you could currently see if you turn on Comcast. And you can pick from video from any website around the world and watch it in real time, high definition video, anything, infinite limit. Anybody in this room can start a TV network. Anyone in this room can start a radio network. Same goes for radio. You're driving down the road, you have your preset URLs like you do on a website that are in your radio. You hit them, and your favorite radio station comes on from anywhere. That's the utopian vision. It's like electricity, same idea, regulated by government, regulated meaning ensuring competition, that competitors have access to the wires, that the costs are low, that net neutrality and openness is enforced, and that everybody has it as a constitutional right. The same way in the country of Finland, they passed a constitutional law in the parliament saying every citizen in this country has a God-given right to high-speed broadband, and will have it in the next 2 years. And there was one last question. I didn't write it down. I think
In Finland,
well, you know what?
winter.
We're good. And I also want to thank the listeners on the local radio station, WEOS, and Jeff Cohen. Thank you so much for having us, Park Foundation and Ithaca College. Really appreciate it.
In this room, and people in our listening audience on WEOS will join us in this very room on Wednesday, April 7th for Naomi Klein, author of The Shock Doctrine. And I want to thank our speakers again. Josh Silver of Free Press. Our website is freepress.net. And I want to thank Laura Flanders of GRITtv. The website is grittv.org. Thank you very much.